Okay, let's try this. Bloody hell. Are we live? I think so. Let's do voice one as well. And then there we go. And let's do screens, go live. Okay, so can someone join in? Just trying to make sure. Can someone tell me if I'm live or not? I've never done this on YouTube. Where I'm at? Why? Anybody? Can okay. I have no clue if I'm live or not. I have no idea if I'm live or not. It says I am, but if I refresh the YouTube video, it doesn't show that I have no clue if I'm live or not. Blah, blah, blah. Oh, yes. Okay. I have a second computer on. I have no idea if I'm live and it's not it says I am, showing that I'm live, but if I refresh the YouTube video, yeah, I can see you, Laura. Doesn't show that I have no clue if I'm live or not. What the heck? Okay. Here, give me a moment. I'm signing in on a second computer to see. Okay, so let's go with this. This is so weird because I have this on a second computer and it's showing that it's still getting the cover, but yet on here it shows that I'm live and I'm on the same URL. What in the heck? Because I want to be able to see people's comments. What the heck? Okay, live right now. Ah, okay. All right, I'm an idiot. Got it. Okay. Now I can see. There's two URLs. One's for the cover, one's for the actual live session. I did for on my side. Okay. Good to go. All right. So Hi, Laura. Um, you can hear me okay? My voice doesn't sound choppy or anything. Um, I'll use you as my guinea pig. Um, if I sound okay or if I'm coming through okay on everything, um, just let me know really quick, please. Please and
I
thank
can
you.
hear you.
Ah, perfect. Sweet. And you're on Discord as well. Perfect. Okay. So you guys should be able to see my screen, right, Stephanie?
Yeah, I can see your screen on Discord, but not
But not on YouTube.
yet.
Okay. Here, give me a second. Because it's kind of strange that there's two links for this. Here, I just put it on the campfire. So that should be it. Let me know if you got it. I just want to make sure everything's working on both sides.
Oh, yep, that one works.
Awesome. Yay. Okay. I'm still new to how this YouTube thing's working, but so far it's a lot easier than Twitch. That's for sure. Um, okay. So, where are you? MattePaint challenge. Okay. Sweet. How are you doing? How are things on in the US?
Good. How about with you?
It's nice and sunny here. It's been a little bit hot the last few days, but today it's finally much cooler and cloudier, so I like it. So I'm happy that it's nice out. It's nice out and I'm inside. But it's going well. It's been a long week, and I start at Scanline next week on
Yeah,
Monday.
you got your visa.
Finally,
That's
I'm very excited.
exciting.
Yeah, I'm very excited for it. Um, just want to make sure that was working. Perfect. Yeah, I'm excited. It's gonna be fun. It's going to be a lot of work, but I'm excited. It's going to be fun. Um, let's see. Okay, so this is the brief. What's this? Ah, okay. Logo, all that good stuff, and then there's a piece. Okay. Um, and then we have this as a smart object that works. Okay. So I was actually thinking about this morning that those who are new to matte paint and are trying to build a portfolio should use this challenge if your goal is to really get a matte painting job, to use the challenge by treating it like a client, like Matt Paint's your client, and they're here and they gave you this brief, and this is your plate. I think that's kind of clever to do because when I got my first internship at Frame Store in New York, half of my reel was not only freelance work, but it was also some personal work like this, where Matt Paint had a challenge. It was a list of things like this, and then you had your plate and you just build off of it. And that way, when you're uh, interviewing for anything, you can be like, "Yeah, I had a client. Their name is Matt Paint, and this was the plate, and this is everything that I had to do." Um, and it'll kind of help sell you a little bit uh, for portfolio wise for clients, because all they're really caring about is, can you take what's there and do what's asked of you. Um, so that's the way I've been treating a lot of these challenges. Take what's there and uh, build off of it. So for this, there's our reference. There's a reference of the tents. I've been kind of thinking about how I'm going to make these tents glow. So that's going to be interesting. When I get stuff like this, I tend to just go over the brief, study the reference that's there, and then the other references that are provided. So when I'm doing this, I'm kind of looking at the tents of like, okay, where's the light coming from? How's the light working? The inside of it, the glow on the outside, the shape of it, the colors, all that good stuff. And these are kind of cool tents. I've never seen a tent like this. That's kind of interesting. Okay. I wonder if I could do something like that in here. Have something open in here. Yeah, and open in here. I think that could be interesting. Okay. Alright, so what's the brief? Using camera raw filter, remove distortion, chromatic aberration, noise without destroying too many details. That's going to be a tricky one for people. And I'll go over that one in a little bit. Finally grade the image to a later time in the day. So something like that. See reference of the image. Lens flare. Gotta love lens flares. Okay. Change the time of day to a dusk feeling. Okay. And make it look like space. All right. So the first thing that I would do, and I would open this image up. Let's do okay. Oh, no. Why? Oh, that's different. Let's do that to a new PSD. Why are you doing this? Okay. That's not normal to do. Okay. Yeah, that's typically not normal. Okay, so what I'll do, because that's not working normally, is I'm just going to create a new document. Go to saved. Let's do 2K, 16-bit. Open it, and then let's duplicate this over to there. Cool. And then I want to show as much of the plate as possible. I really like this foreground, so I want to show more of that than anything. And when I get stuff like this, even for client work, I'll try to study the plate of what's going on, and I like to sometimes make a new layer and just call it notes. And so for this one, I'll do this. So, and I'll go over my brushes because I know some people were curious about it. If any of you have questions as I go, please let me know. Okay. So one of the first things that I like to do is, if I have the plate, is just study it. So first off, the light direction is based on the clouds and the little pings of light, and even on the tents. The light isn't over here, it's more of way the heck over here. So our light is going to be more down here. So I'll put that like that. And then to fix something, I'll just do it in yellow. So this, get rid of that. And then we need to, oh, this is what everyone was showing on Discord, because I was seeing this. I'm like, what is that? Okay. That's kind of cool. Okay. And then with this, we need to get rid of chromatic aberration, noise, and distortion. Okay. So we have that. We have our light source. And then with this as well, let's see. It's very purplish in shadows as well. And I can do that by putting up a hue saturation. And yeah, it's purple in shadows, more bluish purple. Okay. And then, interesting. Okay, this is a very noisy plate. All right, I wonder if I can put this up to 4K and if it will give me the resolution. It does. Okay. All right, I wonder what size this image is. You know, we're going to go with 4K just because we get all those extra little details than before. And it also kind of gets rid of a lot of the noise and chromatic aberration as well. So let's start with this. So the first thing for this that it says is remove distortion, chromatic aberration, and noise. One of the things that a lot of people tend to not realize is that uh, you will have chromatic aberration within the noise. That tends to kind of trick people. So you can in order to remove chromatic aberration, you can also do it by removing noise, and that will automatically fix chromatic aberration. So you have to kind of, so if you try to do the aberration first and then noise, you're going to lose more detail. So I would suggest remove the noise first and then do chromatic aberration and then do your lens distortion. So ideally, these are backwards. I think he did that on purpose. Um, so for this, I'm just going to make a copy of this. And if we go into filter, camera off filter, we should be able to see sharpening, luminance. Okay, that's fine. That's fine. Here's our distortion right there. And dehaze. So the way when I'm dealing with noise, you need to be very careful of how much you get rid of, because the noise that's in the tents here, you want a little bit of that noise just because that's how you get details, and same within the rocks. But something back here, obviously it's very, very noisy. You can see it. So if I'm looking at this plate and I want to denoise it, I'm not going to be looking at the tents. I'm going to be looking more at the water because that's where we can see like all the chromatic aberration, all the noise. And we're only going to work to the amount of clearing this up, and that will in turn affect the tents. But if our focus is trying to clear up the chromatic aberration noise based on looking at the tents, the result's going to be very different. I hope that makes sense. Um, yeah, I hope that makes sense. Uh, Anyone who's on Discord seeing this live, like, feel free to interject. That way I don't feel like I'm talking to a wall. Um, yeah. And then, okay, so to do this, we're going to go to camera raw filter. We're going to look at the water because that's where a lot of our noise is and chromatic aberration. So then we're going to go to the effects and we can dehaze this. We could probably leave that at 0. I haven't really used camera raw filter that much, so because that adds grain. Okay, interesting. I normally don't do grain in Photoshop. I tend to do it in Lightroom. Excuse me, in Lightroom or in Nuke. Here we go. Okay, so it's going to be under this tab, noise reduction, and I'm going to do only the luminance, and I'm only going to go until the water looks pretty clear. I mean, you don't want to go too far because look how smudgy it gets and unrealistic that looks. And if we look at those tents, see how smooth that becomes? But if I do it here, it might look good here, but it won't look as good here. So you kind of have to play with it a little bit. You don't want to remove too much because again, yeah, it gets very smudgy. So when you're doing this, just go until things kind of blur a tiny bit together. And then let's try to sharpen this a little bit. What does that look like there? Okay. Always kind of play with this a little bit to see what happens with it. So with this, I want this actually down. Yeah, because it's doing some weird stuff. So, and this will kind of retain the detail, and then yeah. So that's what I would do first, and then from there, get rid of the chromatic aberration. And it's the same way. Don't blast it. Just take it slowly until it gets rid of. And in the noise, we can kind of see already where generally the way you can see noise is between two different elements. So if we look right here, we can see um, the chromatic aberration on the edges more than anything. And it's always going to be where two elements meet together. So with this, I'm looking at the red because we were dealing with the purple, and I just want to reduce this a little bit. And already that looks better. I could reduce it all the way, but it's too much. And then let's get rid of a little bit more of the blue because there's some blue. And then let's do that, and we should be good to go. So if I zoom out, and you never want to get rid of all the chromatic aberration. It always needs to be very, very subtle because chromatic aberration does add detail. So it's definitely one of those that you want to be very, very careful with. And again, this is something I would do in Nuke myself. So now let's look at those tents. Whoops, it's too far in. Hey, Nicola, welcome. And welcome to everyone who's on YouTube. If any of you guys have questions, ladies and gentlemen have questions, please feel free to ask. I'm also live on, I'm also live on Discord, so if you want to join the chat, go for it. Yeah, all right, so seeing the tents, they look pretty good. I'm pretty happy with that. I like how everything is. And now if we go to the lens distortion, now this is a little bit of a tricky one as well because ideally this already looks, I'm going to go with okay on this. Okay, really quick. So yeah, so there's the noise and the chromatic aberration, and there's everything that we just fixed. It's retaining the detail, but we're also getting rid of those few defaults. Now, we still have a little bit of chromatic aberration, but it's more on the sides there than anything. But we can get rid of that. Oh, for lens distortion. Okay, so looking at this, there is a tiny, subtle lens distortion. But it's really, really minute. It's really, really tiny. And the way I can see it, for me personally, is part of it's the lens flare is in the center. So if we look at the ground, everything's kind of banding up this way. Everything's kind of, yeah, kind of going in this way a little bit, I think. And it's just by just looking at like the foreground versus the background here and how everything kind of stretches. That's kind of how I'm seeing everything. So the way I would fix that is if we go to filter, camera raw filter, go to the lens distortion tab. Yeah, so our lens is doing something kind of like this. And so we only need to keep this very little. Yeah, there we go. Yeah, and I always go back and forth between it just to see which one works. So like -3 doesn't work, -4 works pretty good. And that is what I would go with. I would leave these as a smart object like this. That way you always have something to fall back on. Uh, but I rarely when I'm doing my Photoshop files, I'll do one Photoshop file that is specifically just for like the client briefs of remove distortion, chromatic aberration, the noise, and then getting rid of like the lens flare. So I would do that stuff on one PSD. So I'll mark it in blue. I'll do this, 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 and then uh, that one all in one PSD. And then the second PSD would be doing my sky. So it would be this one, my space frames, because that goes with the sky. And then also, I think you can remove the mountain. Other notes, the feeling of atmosphere is up to you. Okay, you can add more sci-fi elements. Replace the sky is optional. So let's replace the sky because this is something that you do quite a bit. We'll keep the elements of the mountain, but we'll replace the sky. So again, that would be in the same PSD as this. And then that also goes with the atmosphere as well. And then my third PSD would be my elements of my sci-fi stuff. So that would be number 5 and adding the fire and my sci-fi elements. That would be the third PSD. That's how I would generally break it down. That way you always have something to fall onto if you need to go back and fix something. So for this one, because we have it, I'll do this. And now we have everything baked. So we'll do this as a plate. We'll call this merged. And then let's get rid of this lens flare. There's a few different ways of getting rid of a lens flare. This is something that is a little bit tricky. When you're in a production house, there's generally 2 ways of dealing with it. Yeah, one of them is with curves, and the other one is just to clean it out and stamp it out. But with curves, it's for something this big, it can be really tricky. So because it's very, very, very milky. So with this, I wonder if there's also a way. I just thought of this actually. Convert to smart object. And I want to go to filter, camera off filter. I remember there was dehaze. I wonder if this would work. I was just thinking this because I came on this by accident. No. I'm just wondering if there's a way to get rid of this in here. Balance, blah, blah. I ain't doing anything. That should be fine. Oops. Zoomed in way too much by 1600. It kind of works, but not that much. Okay. Just trying to see if there's anything that will kind of do that. Okay, I guess not in camera raw. So the way to deal with this mainly is, quite frankly, just duplicate that section, pull it over. We need to clean up some of the repetition in here. So with the Laszlo, I'm just gonna do things like this. So it's not looking so repetitive. So what I'm doing is content aware with the Laszlo tool. I'm just going and selecting areas that are repetitive from the left side. because we need our right side to look different. Because we don't want it to be the same. And then let's do something like this. Will it work? Yeah, that kind of works-ish. Got a little bit of line. I'm not personally a big fan of using the content aware. I tend to be a little bit more skeptical of it because it can do a lot, but depending on what is needed, it can be very destructive. But that's just me personally. Okay. So now that I have that, I'm going to invert this, and I'm just going to just bring this back a bit. Sure, there's other ways of doing this as well, but that's kind of one way of doing this. And then it's obviously too dark, so we're going to brighten this up a bit, and I can do that with levels. Just bring this up, and there we go. That's kind of the gist of it. And then it's just really up to your paint strokes and your way of painting, if it will match or not. And then, so I'm gonna keep it like that. That should be fine. I kind of like those mountains, like that. Oops. When will I save the file? When it's ready. In just a minute. But even then, I can see that it's a little too light, so I'm gonna add a little bit of contrast. Not too much. And that's one way of doing it. The other way is really just with a curves layer, but it's a real pain in the butt, and I'm not going to do a very good job of it, but I'll show you. Is this with a curve? Have your hue saturation all the way at 0, and with the curve, I'm just going to Laszlo this section off, and we're just going to bring this down a bit. I'm going to add a little bit of contrast. We're going to increase the whites a little bit. Okay, now we're going to bring up this, and it needs a little bit okay, needs a little bit of green, I would say. Yeah. Tiny amount. Okay. And then from there, just with your brush, and take your time with it. And what's gonna show if it's working or not is your edges mainly. So like this, it's very obvious that it's not working right there. In the center, it looks pretty decent, but here, not so much. So that's when you have to be pretty good with your paint strokes and your blending to be able to see those and go, okay, let's match it. So when you're doing this, take your time on it. Okay, so that's kind of working down here pretty nicely. Okay. But it's still very muddy. But I don't know. That's kind of one way to deal with it. Normally you don't really get lens flares that big because it really goes over all the water and such. So what I would personally do is I would just cut it out like this. And then from there, now what I would also do in this Photoshop file is remove the sky. So let's do that. Oh, okay. You guys are more than welcome to join the chat if you like. Okay, so to remove the sky, still a lot of chromatic aberration in this. So let's go back into this camera raw filter. Oh, I thought I did it. Okay. Kind of have to play with it a bit. There we go. Yep, there we go. Okay. Fixed. All right. Check that water. And it's very subtle, but it works more on the trees more than anything. Yeah. Okay. So I do that. Merge it. Copy, paste. Do that. Bring this back. Okay. So now to cut out that sky. And this is why I like smart objects, but I rarely ever use them. It's just so you can always go back and fix something. Kill the mountain, it's done, pretty much. I mean, this is its own matte painting in itself. I mean, perfectly. So the way I'd get rid of the background, it's obviously, from looking at this, we obviously have contrast versus light. So in this, I'm not caring so much of down here of looking at the lights. I'm looking more of up on the edges where the two are intersecting. So like this one would work well for the trees, I would say, because we get the most contrast with the blue on the trees. And then for the mountains, the most contrast is on the red. So I would do two masks, one for the trees, one for the mountains. So for the trees, let's select this. Let's do this. There we go. And then you can color pick this like this. And already that's working pretty well. You want to be careful though. A lot of people mistake this, and I used to have the same issues, is with your levels, never have them together. Never, ever, ever. Not even like that close. I would never do it just because of what it's doing to the edges. Make sure that there's plenty of space apart. If even like this, like even this would work nicely. But I think we could push this up just a tiny bit. And then I'll go okay. And then with something up here, I could use the dodge brush, even that was too much. Put the exposure really little. I'm just tapping with the pen. I'm not caring about getting rid of all this. That's going to be easy with the Laszlo tool. I'm just focusing everything on those edges more than anything. And then this should be fine. And let's see, let's bring this back. I like to mix masks together because you can do a lot with it. I kind of figured that stuff out when I was doing new compositing for a commercial, where you have to mix 4 or 5 masks together. And I thought if that was possible to do in matte painting, and I did it, and it worked really nicely. I was able to have a lot more control over all my elements, and it really allowed me to get better edges. And there we go. I really like that. I think that works. With edges, another thing with it is you see how we have, this is perfect right here, where we have from white to gray all the way to black. We want that range. We don't want all of these to be black because then you're going to get a lot of fringing happening. You want what's called a non-pixel, which is a pixel that is transparent, kind of like a PNG where you have transparencies. You want something like that on here. And then like, let me even notice I missed a little bit of a cloud right there. So whenever I'm working, I take my time with my masks all the time. They are a huge part of what's going to make a good image. And then for sessions like this, like everything up here is and that side is looking really good for a mask. It's very nice, it's clean, but this side I want a little bit more of those trees to come through, so I'm only going to select that area, nothing else. And with levels, I can click on the eyedropper and click right there, and boom, there it is. And now we have a pretty nice clean mask. That is literally how I mask everything, right there. And then I can select it, and there we go. Invert this, and there it is. And that's a pretty good cleanup. So this is kind of how I do my Photoshop files. I'll do one where it's just doing everything with the plate, and then afterwards I'll go and fix everything up. So I'll show you how to deal with those edges in a little bit, but let's get that mounted and cut out. Then I'll make a second one. I'll delete the mask, and now I'm only going to focus this other mask strictly on the mountain edge. And if I remember right, it was on the red. Yeah. Well, even the green could work pretty well, I think. I'm gonna go. Yeah, I'm gonna go with the red one because I have the most contrast on the edges. Okay. So I'm gonna duplicate this again. I want to make a section of this only. Control Shift I. I don't know where this gray comes from. It's annoying as heck. And then from there, I'm going to just do this, click. And then this is going to be that. And already that's looking pretty good. Hello, Ian from YouTube. Ian Samantha. Name kind of sounds like my name, except a lot better. Mine's only 3 letters of Ian. How original, right? Okay. So then for something like this, I'll just get rid of it like that. Okay, yeah, so far that's a pretty good edge right there. Okay, and then we don't need to care about this part at all. And then, all right, so now I can do another levels, and with the blacks instead, I can do it on this gray. Boom. Okay, I can keep clicking a little bit more, and that itself is way too close. So I'm gonna. So with something like this, you have to be careful. So I'm looking at the edges of the trees, and I'm looking at how far the black from here grades up. So if we take a look at that, see how it just grades up a little bit? So with this, I never want to get crunchy because now if we look at that edge, our edge is right there, but if we go over it, see how it's pushing outward, and now we have all these staircases. We don't want that. So I only will go up to like there. I like that, and then the rest is literally just with a paintbrush. Not like that. Okay. I am really precise with my masks. It is, and the other reason of why I'm very precise with it is it will make the compositor's life that much easier because then they don't have to go and mask things out or fix up your edges because you took the time to fix them up. You want to make the life of the other person who's picking up your painting to be easy. Don't make life so hard for other people. Make it easier. So when I'm doing work like this, I try to make sure all my masks of everything that I'm doing, even if it's painting highlights or whatever, just for it to be that much cleaner. Because it's going to it's going to give a lot less of a headache for somebody else, and that's what we want. We don't want to make a nightmare for other people. Because I've had to open up other people's paintings, and it's been a nightmare where you open it and nothing's labeled, everything's all over the place. The edges are all bad and you have to fix it up. It is that in itself is a nightmare. So then like again on with this side, I'll take this because the trees here that we have look really good, except this mountainside we needed something a little bit better. So I'll just select that area, do a Control L for levels, click on the eyedropper, and click this up a little bit, and there we go. Now we have something pretty good. A lot less paint work that has to be done. And then you just go in and with a nice brush. I know some of you had questions about my brushes. I'll go over them a bit. I have specific matte painting brushes that I use because I have found that they work for pretty much anything I need. Sometimes I might have to make a custom brush depending on the texture or the fur of something. But generally, I have a few that I'm pretty stuck on, just because of how well it works and how many uses you can have with it. So I'll go over those in a little bit. And then let's see, for this section, same thing. Make a section. And that's way too close, so I don't want that. I like that. And then, oops, my bad. I'm on a new workstation, so my hand on the keyboard feels very different. Okay, so there we go. So always take your time with these. I have definitely noticed a good matte painter has good mattes. I mean, I know that sounds a little egotistical, but some of the best matte painting work I've seen have really phenomenal edge work, and it really makes a huge difference. So I definitely encourage those who really want to get into a studio, like take your time cutting stuff out, because it will leave a big difference. Okay, I like that. I'll bring this back in post or in the other image. So I'll take, oops, oh, I'm pressing the wrong key. There we go. Okay, and then bada bing, bada boom. Invert this like this. Then I will bring back my plate. Or actually, I'll just do it on this. Like that. Now I'm looking at this mountain. Uh-oh. I wonder if that was a chromatic aberration. Probably. Okay. I'll bring that back in a minute. So I'm just double checking everything. And then if you have an edge like that, just with a little brush, just kind of fix it up a little bit. Okay. You also want to be careful with your edges, just because there might be some areas that are highlights. Okay, so the edges on this are pretty rough. Some are very even. So to fix that, yeah, I think that's fine though. I would just go on the feather and just push it out a little bit. And that should make it pretty well even for everything. And just play with it a little bit. Yeah, but I don't like what the chromatic aberration did on this. So again, go back. Where you at? Gotta love chromatic aberration. Normally, I would do this in nude because it works so much better, or in bridge because it'll do it at a much higher level. So with this, really, it's that one. Interesting. That's silly. Okay. Aha. All right, there we go. All right. So now that's looking pretty good. Okay. Wish you could have like the hand tool in here. All right. So now let's look at those trees. Yeah, that's looking better. All right. So again, I'll take this. This is why I like having one PSD for everything, or for like my plate, because I can always go back and double check everything. So this is going to be for this. So that one's going to go there, and that one's going to go there. There we go. So now, if I turn this off, turn that off, we should be good to go. That looks a lot better. Okay. Now to deal with the edges, because a lot of people tend to have issues with those, especially on like trees and stuff. Now this is something that's a little bit tricky for people. There's different ways of dealing with it. For me specifically, I have one way that I utilize all the time, just because it works for anything and everything that I do. And I just it just works. So let's go over a few of those. So I'll take those and I'll merge it. And then what I'll do is I'll make a clipping mask and I'll show you a few ways. So one way actually is a quick way to do it all over instead of having to just go and stamp or whatever, is duplicate it, move it up a bit, clip it, and then I'm going to select the mask, and I'm going to go to select, modify, contract, and let's do, how many pixels is that? Excuse me. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So we're gonna do 6 pixels. So select, modify, contract. Let's do 5 instead. And then I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna invert it. And now it should only be on those edges. Right there. For everything. But the only part with this is you're gonna get places where it doubles up. But for how well it works pretty dang well. And then at this point, that's when you can just, with a brush, just go in and clean up some of those areas really quick. That way you just don't have repeating stuff. Because nobody wants repetitiveness. I don't. So that's kind of one way to do it, and then afterwards, or like do something like that, and then I'll just stamp it out, certain things out, just because it's easier to stamp something, and then just clip it. The stamp tool on the new version of Adobe's been very glitchy lately. It's been a little annoying. But with stuff like this, just take your time on it, because it definitely shows as a matte painter if you're trying to rush through something, or you're really trying to take the time. When you're in a studio, you'll be doing a lot of things like this. I mean, it's mostly just remove and replace things. So I'm just going to go with that for now for those mountains because that worked pretty well. And then for those trees, it did not work very well. So what I would do with those, yeah. So it should be, there we go. Oops. Always, I sometimes have this on as well, because you can really see all your masks. And then there we go. We should be good to go. All right, now for the trees. I'll put this back on top. So now we have our flare back or gone. And then for the trees, to fix those up, there's a few ways of dealing with it. The one way is to put this on color mode. And then we're going to select the color of the greenery, and with a brush, just tap it right on top. And that'll kind of work, but your edges still are kind of crappy. That's my own personal opinion. For me, I don't like doing this. I did it. This way works, but it's not the best way. Personally, I'm not a big fan of it because then you can double click on this, go to blue, and we're only going to let it be on the blues. Or is it going to be this one? Yeah, it's going to be that one. Yeah. It kind of works, but for me, it's not good enough. That's just my own opinion of it. So again, the best way I would do it is stamp it out, or find another image of trees and do it that way. Yeah. And part of that is if we match our sky to be something similar, this will also blend in really nicely. So let's do that. So then this is where like I would save, and just call it version 001. And while that's saving, let's go to MattePaint and let's find a sky. I hope this is interesting for you, for everyone. If there's something you're curious about, let me know, and I'll go over it again if anyone has questions. So please feel free to ask on anything, and make conversation because I'm kind of talking to a wall. I literally have a wall in front of me. So yeah. Okay, so for the mountains, the brief said change the time of day to a late dusk feeling. Dusk. That is an epic image. Holy crap. You can that kind of looks like two suns, even though it's probably a flare. That's really cool. Dang. Okay. Let's save that because I like that one. Let's see, dusk feeling. I'm trying to, if I remember right, the sun was coming from the left side, so that's going to be kind of similar. So I'm going to download the sample, and then very dusk. This is kind of cool. I like how if the mountains were here, we would have from big to small. I always try to find skies that are like this, just because it really sells scale of things. But wasn't there? Oh, okay, I thought there was a sky image in here. I want to say yes, there is. Just gonna say this should be it. Okay, so just the high resolution of it. Yeah, that is pretty big. Okay, so you know what? Let's use one of these. So let's do that. Nope, and then one. There we go. Nope. All right, so now we have our skies. Okay, so anything like this, or sorry, I'd group it together and call it like, I know, plate work. And then mask trees, mask mountains, and then here's our sky. Well, that one's really low res. Okay, so delete that one. Okay, this one's pretty bigger res. All right, so where's our sun direction? It's coming from the left, so that works. But, well, is it coming from left? No, it's not. It's coming from the right because of that ping. So we gotta flip it. There we go. Oh, well, I don't even pretty much have to color grade it. Like, fits right in. The mood that I'm going for? Not really, no. um, the the mood that I'm trying to go for mainly is following the brief as much as possible. Like what I was explaining earlier is when it comes to these challenges, me personally, I try to treat this challenge as if it's a client job. of the client came to me saying, hey, we have this plate. Here's the list of things that I want fixed. Here's my reference. Here's an asset for you. And then here's a reference of the tents that we kind of like. So that's how I'm going based on this. And then my mood and reference for the overall image is going to be this, just because that's uh, what they're asking for. So that's the way I like to work, just because it's good practice to treat it that way. That way, when you're interviewing at a job or you're trying to get freelance work, you can show off stuff like this of like, hey, I had the client that was MattePaint. They gave me the brief. This is the plate, and this is the work that I did afterwards. And you can show that. And because all these studios and clients, all they want to be able to do is come to a MattePaint and be like, hey, here's my list of things. It's literally step and repeat. Here's my list of things. Here's the plate that we're using. Here's the reference idea of what we like. And then if you would like to add in a few things, go for it. That's more of freelance stuff. Like I recently did a job for a commercial in LA. I can't say anything about it, but the client gave me a brief similar to something like this. I've actually removed a distortion, chromatic aberration. Add it was let's say the artwork was alien of nature, let's say, and so it was not like here on this planet, so it's a little bit similar to this, and then just treat this like a client job. And then there's your reference and build it off of that, and you should be good to go. Um, if you're trying to shift the light direction, you would have to relight everything in order for it to be realistic enough. In order for it to be realistic. So I would say don't do that. Generally, if the plate is already shot the way it is, the client's going to want to keep it. So I wouldn't personally change that. And then for this, I like this horizon line right here. And then our sun's coming from over there. So with our sun being here, our sun needs to actually be bigger. So yeah, so it's going to be more something like this. Yeah. Hmm. Kind of trying to find like a good composition of the sky. Because I really like these details in the clouds right here, and I like these mountains back here. Uh, so I might try to do, because of how backlit this is, I might try to do something like this, because I really like these lines. And then I want to duplicate this, and I'm going to bring in some of these mountains from back here. So I'm going to invert this, and I'm going to mix this in with like one of my cloud brushes that I really like. Just because of how well this cloud brush blends in stuff. Yeah, there we go. Boom. And then just paint it very softly. Yeah. When you're in production, they're going to have plates like this, and then you have to match everything to that plate. So like on the brief, it was like, hey, replace the sky if you like. So, and generally you're replacing skies and doing something like this. So that's how I would treat it. And then, it's good practice to match everything to your plate. That's what I would do. If you're really wanting to get a job in a studio, match everything to a plate, because that's what's going to get you the job. They're going to want to see that. They're not going to want to see something so drastically different where you only use maybe the fire and everything else is 100% different. As a map painter, you need to follow the directions of, hey, this is what we need done. Here's the plate. Here's the reference. Uh, and that's why I was saying, like, use this challenge if you're really wanting to get a job, to treat it like a client job. So then for the sky, we're going to color match this. We're not going to color match anything to this quite yet. I'm just matching the sky to the plate. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put my luminance down first. And right off the bat, this already looks pretty good. Even though the back is, it could probably be a little bit brighter, quite frankly. And the way I'm doing this, I'm just looking at these mountains in the back. Yeah, all right, see, already that's matching pretty well. Okay, now it's just the color. So now if we put this up, we can put this on color. And what's really affecting it is not our midtones, it's our highlights and our shadows. So we're going to go to our highlights. It's really red, so I'm going to put a little bit more green, a little bit more blue into this. All right, let's go into our shadows. Make everything a little bit more bluer. And that's already, boom, there it is. That feels kind of dusky-like. And that's blending really nicely between the two. That's what I was saying, like with edges, with your masks, push up the feather a little bit because it'll blend what's behind it in front of it as well. And then the only thing that is not working is the right blue. So part of that is our saturation. If we look at the saturation of our sky versus our foreground and everything, it's a little too desaturated. So I'm just going to beef this up a little bit. I mean, obviously not 100% because it breaks it. So just a bit. And then our blue is still, I think our curves could be a little darker. No. Like that. And then this, I think, could be pushed down a little bit. I'm trying to avoid tangents. That's another thing a lot of map painters tend to mess up on, is tangents. And I know this because I was doing the exact same thing. And for those who don't know, a tangent is when you have line is, for example, it's more with borders. So like the top of this mountain being right on the cloud. It's not natural. You rarely ever have things that do that in nature. So I'm trying to add something a little bit of breakup like this just to sell the depth of something back in here. And there we go. That's looking pretty good. Now the blue is still a little too purpley, so with this, I would probably do another hue saturation. I'm going to go to cyans because that's going to be my blue. And I want to darken them. It's very subtle, but something like that. And then if we look at this again, we could probably go back to our hue correct and go to the midtones, and let's put a little bit more blue in it. And then let's go to our highlights. Yeah. And now that's kind of matching a little bit better. Our blue in the shadows is still very purplish. So there we go. Okay. It's looking a lot better now. There. And now to get our plate working a little bit with this, the other part is I'm also looking at the highlights of these mountains. They're already a bit yellowish, so I don't really want to mess with that. It's already matching that kind of yellow. And it's already looking a little bit natural, so I just don't want to mess with that at all. And then, like if I'm painting atmosphere, this is something a lot of people tend to mess up on, is if I want atmosphere, I'll make a new layer. I'll select the sky color. And with your nice, lovely cloud brush, let's go with that one. Let's put it on the mountain. Just gonna add a little bit, but I think that's too much because then our background isn't working, so I'm not gonna do it. I would actually do it right in between here, just to push that backwards a little bit more. There we go. Just to push that distance just a tiny bit. And then let's see. Whoops. I like how the edges are working up here. They're very clean. Where's this coming from? Okay. So I have a mess up on here, and it's coming from this. Okay, so I can do that. Boom. Okay. And we should be good to go. Yeah, that should be okay. Done. And there we go. That's working really nicely. Even for the trees, I would say, for what's in between it. It really helps to match the sky to the plate because it just, all the colors that's in between just fit right in, I would say. And then that's a lot less work that you have to deal with. So I would say it's very important to match. The only thing that's not matching is like this part. So what I would do for this, because it's very orangey, we can kind of see that, is, let's see, what could I do? What could I do? Okay. So I could do a color balance and like this, do a color balance, and with this, my tones are going to be much more bluer and greener. And we're also going to darken this a bit. And then our highlights are way too blue at that. Put that in a group. Select the trees. Do that. Put that in group again. Add a mask. Just like this. And now, with the brush, ta-da! Here we go. And that should fix it for you. Oops, not that area. But generally that area should work pretty well. There. And that's just for that tree. Boom, done. So that's kind of how I do things. All right, let's get a little bit more fancy with this. Now for the space rings. I love doing space stuff. Make sure to save really quick. So those are space rings. If any of you have questions, please feel free to jump in and ask. If there was something you were curious about that you want me to go over again, please just feel free to ask on YouTube or on Discord. Go right ahead, which reminds me I should have Discord open. Here, is there anyone on Discord? Okay, not really, no. Um, okay, there we go. Okay, so there's, yeah, all right. All right, now that I got that, let's get a little bit more interesting. So when I'm doing stuff like this, get the hard stuff done first. Match the sky, get it looking right because that already sells the realism of it. And now to then go and do the fancy stuff, it's going to be a lot easier because now we have our color tone, we have our sky, we have the realism of it. Now we can get fancy schmancy with it. So with this, let's add our rings. Uh-oh. Oh, there we go. Okay. So I'm going to take a section of this, and I'm going to put it here. I'm going to convert this to a smart object. Okay. I'm going to add this into my sky. And then there's a few ways of doing this. So one of the things is I would do your space rings based on composition. So so I'm going to call this reference, and I'm going to make a second one called notes. And with this, okay, everything of our mountains and even our lake is pointing this way. I mean, even these mountains and the highlights are pointing this way, and even our clouds. And then with this, our trees are going down this way, our tent lines going this way. Everything's kind of pointing towards the center of this spot. So I'm going to do our space rings with this composition as well. So, and I'm going to do it kind of like the clouds of big to small. So for our rings, kind of line it up right there. And then I could probably do this. And like, let's really over exaggerate this. And then, oops, my weight count wasn't working for a second really quick. Okay, let's do that. I like how tall this is. And let's go with that. Okay. And that's already kind of feeling like it's in the atmosphere almost just because of that perspective. And then what I would do is I always do a duplicate just in case. And let's just go through the blending modes, see what we get. That kind of works. Oh, that kind of works a bit, but not all that well. Darken. Okay, none of those really work all that well. So the way I would do it then is first and foremost, your clouds, because of how thick they are going to cover up a lot of that. We're only going to really see it more up here. So you should be able to like double click on this, go to the blend if, and right there. Yeah, there we go. Something kind of like this. So now no matter what, it's going to be behind the clouds. Someone was asking me about how I did on my most recent piece. Where is it? how I did the lightning and all that in here on this was just that blend diff. All that was the blend diff and then hand painting it, of taking something in and literally just blend diff it a little bit and get it looking right, and you should be pretty well set. Yeah. So even something like this, now we get a little bit more clouds. And then the other part with this that I don't like actually is I like the lighter side being where the light should be. So theoretically, this should actually be backwards, the other way. There we go. Okay, that's already matching a little bit better. Okay, just because of that light underneath it has a little bit more dimension. And then let's fix this a little bit. Let's make this feel taller. Let's push that distance a bit. Okay. And then from there, yeah, duplicate it, do this, press OK, copy, paste. And there we go. Now the only thing that's letting this down is the color of it. So we're gonna need to do that. So click on that, put this on color, and let's make it a little bit more yellow, a little bit more purplish. Let's go into the shadows and let's add some blue. And in space, it's going to be probably a little bit more lighter. And then with that, that's when I would change the fill. Don't do opacity. I would do fill with this because it's going to retain those blacks and those whites a lot better. Where with opacity, it's going to put everything on the same level. So I would do it with fill instead. And yeah, something like that. It's very, very subtle. That's the beauty of matte painting. It's always got to be subtle stuff. But that's kind of how I would do it. And then let's bring this over a little bit. I like that. Okay. I hope you guys are liking this. I'm not too sure if you guys are liking this or not, but I hope so. And then let's see. All right. So that is kind of how I would do all this. Now, in order to match the reference, now that I have everything looking pretty well, this is where I would create a folder called CC, and that CC is called color correct. And in here, I'm now going to match everything to this really quick because I like where everything's at and I want to match this a little bit better. So first I'm going to do a hue saturation like this. So on top of everything, everything's really, really pretty much on the same level except for the sky. So, but that's okay. And then for the color, there we go. Okay, everything's more bluish and purplish. So with that, put a color, put this on color like that. And with our highlights, let's get a little bit more purple into there. A little bit more blues like this. And then we could probably even desaturate this a little bit better, more. kind of match that. And then, let's see. Yeah, keep it like this. And then our rings are orange, so let's get some orange into there in a little bit. And then our shadows are very green. So let's go into our shadows and let's add a little bit more blue into those. Kind of like this a little bit. And then, yeah, I'm liking that. Okay. And already that's kind of matching a little bit nicer. And then, all right, to get those rings to pop out a little bit, because I like how they are there. Oh, the other part is we could, I do like this version better. I'm going to leave that off because I like that better. Yeah, all right, let's go into shadows and let's add a little bit more red into there. Keep that dust feeling. All right, that's better. I like that. A little bit nicer. All right, so for those rings to make them pop out a little bit nicer, because they really stand out here, and I would like to get those standing out, is in our sky. I'm gonna duplicate those, and we're gonna change the blend diff back to normal. Keep this like this, and let's put this on color dodge, or let's just play with this a little bit. Ooh, hey, that's kind of working. Yeah, all right, that's working a little bit nicer. Okay, it's very subtle, but I like it. Yeah, something like that. Okay. All right, let's see what else. Oh, fire. Can't be camping without a fire. So, yeah, this is that blend diff if any of you were wondering. How I got all those lights in those clouds was just the blend diff on everything, and just took my time to paint it. Even getting that atmosphere around the planet to wrap was the exact same thing. Just a lot of blend diff and putting it in the right spots. That should help with you guys. That's a cool little trick that I've been playing with lately, is just blend diff. And then let's see, I can get rid of that. But those still coming out really. Let's change the fill on this. Okay, and then there we go. All right, there. It's a little bit better. Yeah, I like how that looks. But they're very, very sharp. So let's do filter, blur, Gaussian blur. Not that much, obviously, but just a tiny bit, just to fix those lines a little bit nicer. And that should look excuse me, a little bit nicer. And that also works really well with the water, because we've got those high points right there. And that kind of matches those three, oddly enough. So I would go with that. Yeah, this is kind of how I do all those challenges. Just base it based on just the plate. Yeah, this video should be up tomorrow, I believe. And then, all right, so let's go over our checklist. All right, we've done that, we've done that, we've done that, we've done that, done that. Change the time of day. It's pretty close enough. Final grade, close enough to it. I've got that. All right, so let's do those tents and those fires. So I went and found, not that one, on my downloads, where are you? Some fire, because you can never have too much fire, said no one ever. Okay, so let's take this, oops, put this on here, and this is what I'm going to do, like one group just for fire. And on here, do it on screen. And because this has a lot of wood, I'm going to put this mainly just on the wood part more than anything. And that kind of works by itself a little bit. Yeah. Kind of just like that. And then with a nice brush. Gotta love brushes. Actually, let's do it this way. I don't think this one's working all that well. I mean, it kind of works, kind of doesn't. It still feels very flat-ish. I mean, at this point, you just have to have good painting skills to really go in and get this looking right. But that's kind of how I would go about it. Just got to paint it right. When you're doing work like this, you want to take your time. Don't rush it. There you go. That kind of works. From a distance, that works. And then like if we want some flares, take that one. Just put it over, put it on screen, or there we go. And yeah, I mean, it's mostly going to be there, but the fire is going the opposite direction. So something kind of like that a little bit. Put up the levels to get rid of those edges a bit. And we should be pretty good to go. It's always based just on your brushes and stuff of your blending. Get a good looking brush that fits everything. Make sure you have the right blending mode. Having a good quality image definitely is a big factor of this. And just have a good sense of scale and for your eye, and you should be pretty well set. And then like if we want some rim lights, make a new layer, fill it with black, make a new layer on top of that, clip it, put this layer on, let's do color dodge. And then with this, you can paint let's get a mid-tone, and let's pick another brush. Let's do something, yeah, that one works. These brushes, by the way, are my matte painting brushes. And there we go. Boom. I mean, even for fire, and this brush that I'm using is a cloud brush, just to get some of those heating points on there. I would use the same brush for erasing as well. And then let's get that on there. I'm just trying to get a little bit of a edge lights coming off of this a little bit. And it's a little bit of a tedious work, but the end result will be really, really nice. Just take your sweet time on this stuff. The subtleties of things can be a big difference. This rock is not that much on fire. That one's okay the way it is. And when you're doing work like this, have an artistic judgment on stuff. Look at stuff and really think, okay, is this light working the way it is? Is this supposed to be going there? Does this look normal and natural? How does this light fit right there? Yes or no? Because of this flame and this direction of wind. Try to play with that stuff quite a bit. It'll make your work look much more realistic just by answering those kind of questions. I mean, even this rock, even just by a little bit of light right there, we can feel the light in the distance of this. So you always want to play with things like this to push that realism. But this is just kind of how I work mainly. I know other people don't have the patience for this, but for me, I like it. I love this because you really get into the science of things of how does fire react, uh, how does wind react with fire, and how do those rocks look like with the rim lights and the edge lights and the glows of everything. So I probably did way too much on there, but you can see like before and afterwards. And then like you could probably change the fill amount on there, and that should be good enough. And then if we want some light coming onto this glass because of transparency, just paint a little yellow on it, and I'm doing it mainly on the highlights of stuff. I have no idea what that is. A shovel maybe? I don't know. Like this is feeling a little bit of the heat, not too much, but just a little bit. And even just that tiny bit, we can feel that the fire is coming through the glass and heating this up. So you always have to pay attention to stuff like that. It really can do quite a lot. Um, and it's definitely something that will push the realism. So now that we have that, all right, these tents. I've been thinking about these while I've been working. I kind of thought of a story point of this a bit, if I really want to get into this, of having some kind of ship that's with like its wings down. Don't judge my beautiful painting skills. And with the lights like on them, with two people standing here or something. And then actually this ship, whoops, kind of looks like a person. Would be like way up here or something. Whoops. Or whatever, yeah. floating above them with lights coming onto them. Kind of like, hey, who are you? Stranger danger kind of a thing. And then like with another one in the distance that's following this person or whatever. That's kind of what I would do. Build out two shifts and just orientate them a little bit differently and do that. That's kind of what I would do with this. And then to get those tents to be futuristic, kind of like this. How would I do that? How would I do that? Okay, I think I know. I would use the tents that are already there to make it look kind of like this. So, and to feel like there's something in there. So the way I would do it, let's take the plate, merge it, we can get rid of that mask, do apply, and put this in a group, call that group tents. Yeah, I do work with log and lin, but when I'm at home and I'm doing freelance, I just use sRGB. Um, that one tends to work pretty well because you can deliver and they can transfer that to log and lin. But when you're in a studio, they're going to have their own pipeline of log and lin, and that's what you need to follow with the light, and that's what this CC is. It's basically your LUT. And generally with studios, the LUTs tend to be pretty like really like push the colors generally to be something I know kind of like if I have that reference up and then shadows more like that. Yeah, something. That's kind of what your LUT would be almost ish. If this was for a film, that would be linear, that would be log, or log and linear, yeah. But the reason I don't like doing that is it kills your trees. I tend to be very careful when I'm doing my final color grading and my final post work. But that's kind of what it would be if you were in Nuke or whatever. You would be amazed at how much LUTs can kill off information. I did a painting where we had to do all these buildings, and with the LUT that came back onto it, it destroyed all the information. You couldn't see anything or make out anything. We painted all this detail for it to be completely hidden by this LUT, just like the trees here. So I tend to be very careful with my LUTs when I'm making them in Photoshop because I want to retain all that detail. So like for this, for me personally, I'd probably keep this up a little bit. I could probably keep this down a bit. My blacks is still really black. But that's just the black in there. All right, well, I would have to fix that later, but I don't want to fix that now. But that's kind of how that would be done. Something kind of like that. And then, let's see. All right, for those tents, to get the tents to be futuristic, I mean, these are the references, so of what it should be, I would probably just use the exact same tents. And then I did find, however, where are you? An example of a tent. Ah, here we go. At night, which I thought was really kind of cool. So whenever I'm doing stuff like this, try to find references of something similar, and that might help make it look a little bit more realistic. So personally, I like this one more than this. So I'm gonna copy this. There's my reference. And then for the tents, the way I do it is with the curves on that plate, So yeah, okay. So what I did was I took the plate work that I did, duplicated it, merged it, got rid of the mask, press apply, put it in your folder called tents. Now I'm going to try and match the brightness in here. And the reason I like this is the tent colors are already green. So if I match the brightness and I use a brush to fade, I'm going to get that gradient naturally. I don't have to make the gradient. It's already going to be there because of the brush stroke. So I'm going to match the intensity of that yellow and let my shadows be what they currently are, which is very similar to this, if that makes sense. So I'm going to do a curves on top, and I'm matching this plate. So I'm going to match that color because I really like that lime green color. Okay, so I'm going to put this up. I'm going to go up like this. And then it's got a lot of yellows. That with this. I'm just trying to play with the colors a bit more. Let's go green. Right, so the green can go down a little bit. Red can go over, and then push this up like that. And then, yeah, so that's kind of how I would go about it. And then let's see. Let's do another one. Yeah, there we go. Okay. Yeah. Something like that. That's already kind of matching similarly. And then what I would do is add a mask on that. And with a nice brush, let's go. Yeah. We can follow those shapes. Right here. Sometimes I redo stuff all the time. So the big brush, I probably start with the bigger one to get that natural gradient. Yeah. Kind of like that. There we go. Okay. Ooh, hey, that kind of works. That's kind of interesting. Okay. There we go. We got something like this. And then, wonder if I put this on color dodge. Nope. That looks really weird. Could probably take this one and put this on color dodge. There we go. Okay. And then this one would be like my pure highlights. Yeah, there we go. Really get those brights. Yeah, just like that. And that's using the exact same information that's there. And then on this, add your mask of your tent. And just do this with like the lasso tool. Lasso tool has been, why are you doing this? There we go. So when I'm working, I try to be as precise as I can with colors and such. It's easier said than done, but uh, I try to utilize as much from the plate as possible, because it's going to make your life easier. Especially if it's a client job. Just use everything from the plate. It's going to make life easy peasy lemon squeezy. Um, yeah. Let's see. Oh, someone's on Discord. Hello, person on Discord. Um, come on. The lasso tool has been very strange lately. But that's kind of how I would do those tents. Um, just to get those highlights and such, and then like to get those pure whites on the top. Somebody's got their mic on or something. Get rid of this. Put this on normal, and we're just going to select only the highlights of everything. So we're going to go here, let's go to the red channel, copy it, paste it, and yeah, there we go. This on. Yeah, that kind of works a little bit better. I don't think that one works too well. But yeah, I mean, that kind of looks a little futuristic. Now, if we're trying to get something inside, like this, what I would probably do is just find another image of something that looks like it's inside. So for example, I don't have anything. Here, let's put something space-like in here. Okay. I don't know, let's just take this giant object of a thing, whatever that is. I'm gonna put it in here. Like this. And I don't know. I like that, whatever that is. Kind of line that up. That kind of looks a little interesting. Okay. Yeah, there we go. All right, so that kind of has that feel of something inside of it. Something mechanical or whatnot. Yeah, why not? Be creative, right? Yeah, that kind of works, I guess. Yeah, why not? Okay. Whatever that is. I don't know, it could be a machine of some sort, or I don't know. I'll let you guys make up something with it. Yeah, I don't know. Something alien. Yeah, there we go. That actually works really nicely on this green side. Um, that was really kind of cool there. Yeah. Yeah, all right. I think I'll go with that for that one. And then again, it's doing the exact same thing with this tent. Mask out. How good was my mask on that? Pretty bad, but that's okay. Get that gradient on there like that. And then let's do that. I'm doing a really bad job of this mask, so don't judge. Because after I get these tents done, then I'll gotta get going. But yeah, this is kind of how I treat a lot of my stuff. But that is what I would do, just to get something happening. I mean, alien in that one too. I don't know what, but could be. Looks a little alien. And then like I don't know, like glow in the dark tents. And I change the fill amount or something. If you wanted. But that's kind of how I do things. And then put like a ship right here looking at them with two people camping or whatnot. But that's kind of the idea that I would be going with. And then yeah, that's what I would do. So I hope you guys like this. If you have questions or anything, please message me. Feel free to contact me. Um, but this is kind of my process of how I do my challenge, how I do the challenges for MattePaint, and how I also take on client work and just in general with painting stuff. So I hope that was informative and helpful for everyone. And again, if you have questions, please feel free to reach out. And I'm really excited to see what everyone does with this challenge. There's a lot of different possibilities of what you could do. You could put, based on the reference of boats in here, of a whole bunch of people on boats going down here, and these campers are watching them. You could do ships flying. Before I thought about putting, what do you call it? This is in Malaysia or Indonesia. Something like this in the background, uh, way in the distance here, or even up in here, just to show some type of structure of some sort. So I hope that helps. But yeah, that's what I would pretty much go with. And this is kind of how I work, and I hope that helps. So again, just take the plate, do all the work of cleaning up the plate first, do everything that's required on that list, and then from there, then go and do the creative stuff. I know it can be a little daunting to do, like the list of chromatic aberration, noise, grain, all that, but it is definitely a process that takes some time to get used to, and it will benefit you in the long run, especially if you're trying to get it into a studio, because that is required of the job of here's your plate, and now we're going to add and extend and replace things. And you have to color match everything to that plate in order for then the LUT, your CC, in order for it to work. So it's definitely a good practice, and that's literally how I do all my work. I follow those steps, and it works even for freelance work or studio work and personal work. That's why I do it. It's just good habit. Um, so I hope that was helpful. Um, and yeah, I'm really excited to see what everyone does with this. With the last challenge, what everyone did was absolutely remarkable. So I'm definitely excited to see what everyone does with this. And I'm also even more excited for the next challenge after this because I've been working on some tutorials for it um, for the academy. So I'm definitely excited to share that with everyone soon. But again, I hope this helps and have a nice weekend, everyone. Enjoy the nice sunny day wherever you're at. If you're in Montreal, it's nice and sunny. If you're in Europe, it's probably bedtime for you. But I hope that was helpful. Bye.